Welcome back, or if it's your first time, welcome. This is the last podcast. I am your host, Brandon Foster, and this is the only time it's okay to be last. Alright, depression. Nah, fam, not me. And I say it like that because I can remember somebody asking me, B. Foster, you depressed, bro? And for a minute, I wanted to tell the truth and say, yeah, bro, I really think I am. But of course, the ego, the athletic being in me, I was like, nah, fam, not me. I'm good, bro. And I can remember thinking about doing this podcast, and one of the first things I knew I wanted to talk about was me battling depression. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't let my parents know. I didn't let my dad know. I didn't let anybody know that was important to me. I just kind of dealt with it on my own. But I don't want to dive too deep into this intro. But if you haven't listened to my first podcast or my pilot episode, I like to break my podcast into 4 quarters. Why? Because I'm a football player, and I just like to break it down like that. So in today's episode, first quarter, I'm going to tell you how it all started, how my depression journey started. Second quarter, I'm going to go a little bit more deeper into it and tell you how I knew I was depressed and how I kind of admitted to myself that I was depressed. And then when I come back from halftime, third quarter, I'm going to tell you how when I got into education, how kids, my students, got me out of depression. And then the fourth quarter, I'm going to give some advice, some insight about how to handle depression. Now, let's get one thing clear. I'm not an expert. If you are depressed, please go seek help. And again, this is just a platform for me to share my experience and give you insight on how I handle depression. So again, if you are for real depressed and you know it, then find somebody that you love that you can tell and go seek you some professional help. Let's dive right into this first quarter. So there's always a couple of events that you always feel like you're going to know where you were, who you were with, what time of the day. You're gonna remember that event vividly. And there's a couple events in my life that I'm gonna forever remember. One of them is 9/11. I can remember that day very vividly. The birth of my son, I can tell you right now, I remember that vividly because I was scared as hell. Okay, and then low key, when my wife, well, she wasn't my wife at the time, but when my wife told me she was pregnant, I can tell you right then, boy, the world stopped when I heard that news. But there's those few events in your life that you'll never forget. And one of those is the day I got cut from the Indianapolis Colts. So I can remember I was with the Colts for a year already, so I was coming back the day before training camp was about to start. So I get to Indianapolis. I can remember Tim Jennings hitting me up, was like, hey bro, let's go play some golf. We wasn't doing anything. So I'm like, bet, cool. Go to the golf course. I can remember first hole, I'm just trash. At that time I was trash. And just doing, golf stuff. And then my phone rang, and it was my Uncle Barry. And what was weird about that is, for one, like, my Uncle Barry never called. Like, all my uncles, I got great relationships with them, but it's not one of those things where I talk to my uncle on the phone or I call him or we text. It's just one of those things, when I see him, we chop it up, we catch up and all that good stuff. So he calls and he's like, hey, B, did you get cut? And I'm like, no, sir, not that I know of. I don't think so. He's like, all right, man. He's like, you need to check into it. You need to call Jordan, who's my agent. You need to call Jordan and see what's going on, because the coach just called me and they were looking for you, trying to get your number. And at the time I didn't remember, but now I remember that I had got my phone number changed, so I knew they didn't have my phone number. So cool. Tim was like, man, bro, you got cut? I was like, nah, not. I was like, not. I said, they haven't called me, but at the time, again, I didn't remember that I changed my number and that they didn't know. So I text my agent and I was like, hey, Jordan, did I get cut? And of course, he instantly called me back and he's like, nah, he said, they haven't called me, you haven't got cut. I was like, well, my Uncle B called me and said that they was looking for me. He thinks that it's because I got cut. He's like, all right, let me check into it. So he checks into it, he calls me back like 5 minutes later. We played the next hole. He's like, He's like, nah, B, I haven't. He's like, I called him, but nobody picked up. I haven't heard anything. So cool. So my stomach already kind of turning anyway. And I play another hole, and then my phone rings, and it's an Indianapolis number, and I don't remember what Indianapolis area code is. I want to say it's 310, something. I don't know. I could be totally off, but it's an Indianapolis number, so I pick it up. I pick up the phone, and it's Coach Caldwell. So my rookie year was Coach Tony Dungy was the head coach, and great guy. He's a former DB, so I felt real good. Like I went into that previous year. As long as I can, show my work, I can make team, which I did. But he retired over the summer, so I kind of knew that there was a possibility that one, it was going to be harder to make the team, because I know, just like in the real world, if there's a leadership change, that leader is going to want to bring in his people, and just like I knew that Coach Caldwell was going to want to bring in. He was going to have certain type of players. I knew out there. And we had a new D coordinator. So one thing about the Colts is we had a small secondary. Besides, Marlon Jackson, he was a pretty tall cat. But other than that, I mean, we were all smaller DBs. So I knew I was good. But when Coach Tony Dungy retired, then we got a new defensive coordinator, I knew that it was possible that one is just going to be harder to make a team. But it never crossed my mind that, like, hey, bro, you can be cut before even the season starts. So anyway, back to my phone ring, and it's Coach Caldwell. He's like, hey, and this is. I don't know if you guys have seen Hard Knocks, but it's like just cutthroat. He's like, hey, Foster, this is Coach Caldwell, and we decided that we're going to release you today, and we need you to come to the facility and turn in your playbook. And of course, it's like, all I said was, yes, sir. And it sucks because I was with some of my teammates, and I was like, damn, bro, I got cut. And it's like, dang, for real? I mean, it's part of the business. It ain't like they gonna cry, whatever. But it's just like, I'm like, yeah, bro. So I'm on like hole 6. So I like, all right, man, fellas, all right, good luck. Hopefully I'll see y'all. Be playing against y'all, whatever. And I get my stuff and get to the facility. Of course, Coach Caldwell, sat me down and, hey, Foster, we're just going in a different direction. New defensive coordinator, whatever. All the stuff that they're supposed to say. And I have no ill feelings towards Bill Polian and or coach, because that's just part of it. NFL is a business. So, they let me go. So I'm like, cool. So, of course, my agent knows. He's like, all right, Foster, like, hey, it's part of the business. Definitely gonna, try my hardest to get you, because again, what sucks is this was a day before, or 2 days before. I want to say it was 1 or 2 days before we were supposed to report. So my agent was 100 with me. He was like, hey, I'm gonna let you know right now, it's gonna be really hard to get you into these camps because a lot of these rosters are already set. But he's like, hey, keep working out, keep doing your thing, because all it takes is one injury in the training camp, and you'll be flying in. So I'm working, and I'm really like low key. I'm expecting to. I'm watching the ESPN. I'm looking at the wire, at the NFL wire. People, I'm on it. And a couple days go by, and I'm like, all right, cool. I ain't tripping. 1 week goes by. 2 weeks goes by. I'm at the third week, and that's when I'm starting to think, like, because at the third week, you're already, that's technically week 2 of preseason, because you have your Hall of Fame game, and then you have your official week 1 preseason. So that third week is already week 2, and I'm to that point where I'm starting to get a little impatient, and that's when you start thinking, like, man, my career could be over. And look, the thing is, I know a lot of people think, oh, he made NFL, you rich. Like, nah, bro. Well, not me. Because I was I was on practice squad, so that's significantly less money than if I'm a active squad guy making at least the league minimum. I mean, the difference between a practice squad check and a what am I trying to say? A active squad check versus a minimum salary player is a huge difference. You're talking about $3,000 a week take-home pay compared to $10,000 a week take-home pay. Like, that's the difference. Now, don't get me wrong. That's a lot of money, especially right now, me being a teacher. I'll take that $3,000 a week for sure. Okay, but it was a big difference. So again, it's week 3, week 4, preseason over with. So, or I take that back. Week 3 shows up in preseason, and week 3 in preseason for us scrubs, us free agents. That's our game to play. Or I take that back. Actually, week 3 is the game that a lot of your starters play. They're gonna play 1 or 2 quarters, 3 quarters max, and then us scrubs. And I say us scrubs, us free agents, us late round draft picks. We get a chance to show what we can do. But then that last week, week 4, that's our game to play. So in my mind, I was already thinking like, man, if I don't make a week, if I'm not on a team week 4, like, that's bad. Like, it's pretty much over. And again, week 4 rolls up, I'm not on anybody's roster. I mean, I'm texting my agent. He's like, man, hey, B, I'm trying. I'm not getting any bites. And at the time, like, I get it. I'm a 5'7 3/4 corner. There's not a big market for me. Like, I get it. I know I was on the Colts team because, one, the head coach was a former DB, and Coach Dungy is not a big guy. And you look at Bob Sanders, who was 5'9", so they had a thing for, they believed that size wasn't necessarily an issue. If you can play ball, you can play ball. Okay, but again, in the NFL, like, if you got to guard some 6'4" receivers, like, hey, if I'm a GM, I ain't looking at these little DBs either. That's just real talk. Okay, so I knew. I knew. Then I want to say about week 2 or 3, I finally get a call, and it's a tryout with the Cleveland Browns. And one, I might have just been naive. I probably really just didn't know the situation. But my agent's like, hey, give me all the details. Here's your flight, what you need to be, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking it's going to be a tryout for me. Like, so when I get there, get to the facility, I pull up. There's literally 15 DBs there. Okay, so there's 15 of us. So one, that was a shock because I'm thinking it was a tryout for me. Because the tryouts that I seen in Indianapolis, it was always at max 3 or 4 dudes. Okay, and I don't know if you guys know, but practice squad that is a revolving door. It was rare for me to even be on practice squad all year. Okay, but it was what I seen. It was always just 2 or 3 guys trying out or working out and trying out. Okay, so when I got there, there's 15. And, I'm talking to these guys, and some of these guys are like, in my opinion, NFL vets already. I'm like, bro, how long you been in the league? I was like, bro, this is my 4th year. Bro, this is my 8th year. There's some old heads in this group that I'm working out against. So we run 40s. Of course, I had the fastest time. I'm out there chopping like, That's what I do. That's my bread and butter. But again, I'm small, so it has to balance itself out. Then we do a bunch of DB drills, and I always felt like my footwork was icy. Okay, so we do this. Wake up early, we do all that stuff. We do it all in one day, and then we have lunch, and then they tell us right then, like, sorry, we're not gonna go with you, and they didn't go with 14 of us, and the guy that ended up picking was the guy that was already in the league for 8 years. Okay, so at that point I already knew that, like, if that's gonna be my experience to try to make a roster, it's gonna always be tough. Not that I didn't believe in myself, I've always been a very realistic person. Okay, so I didn't get any tryouts, and my phone never rang from that point forward. And that's when, for me, that was the first event that, at the time I didn't know this, but that was the first event for me that put me in the first state, or I guess I want to say first level of depression for me. So I wanted to start this first quarter off with really giving you the event that started my depression. Okay, so I'm about to go into this second quarter and really tell you how I got worse before it got better. So I wanted to tell you this story of being cut because, one, I mean, it's what started it all. And it was really a time where it was just so much unknown that it was just that much scary, because now in the back of my mind, I knew that I was going to have to be more than just an athlete. And you got to think, I've given my whole life to be a football player. Even in college, there were certain things, certain opportunities that I didn't take because I was a football player. Not that they didn't give us opportunities to do more, but in my mind, I was going to be a football player, period. That's all I wanted to do. I had told myself, remember when I told that story in my pilot episode, when I seen my uncle's house and everything slow motion, I was going to be a football player. So, let's take us a quick intermission, and I'll come right back with some more details in the second quarter. So you know the story of how it all started. So now I want to go into a little bit more detail about really after football ended, what were some events that even, like I said, made it worse before it got better. All right, so I got cut. Honestly, like I said, I thought I was going to get picked up, but I mean, NFL, like, child, please, like, you 5'7", bro, like, there ain't that much room for you. And my mom said, and here's what made it hard. So honestly, after a while, like, you know, after it's week 8 or 9 in the NFL, I really told myself, all right, cool, no big deal. Because my attitude was this: for the last 5 years, I was at UT, and they did a great job, and I say they, UT did a great job of, and I really should say Coach Brown did a great job of, one, making sure that we took care of our business academically. And that was important to him because it was one of those things where when you graduate from UT, that holds weight. And I'm telling y'all, I believe that, and I know from, speaking to a lot of my teammates, we all believe that, man, this degree that we have from UT is worth more than the weight of gold. Like, that's low-key how I felt. So I had a lot of confidence that, you know what, all right, cool, if football doesn't work out, I'm going to be able to go to these job interviews and be like, boom, here's my UT degree, hire me. Okay? Just very naive to the fact that I didn't have any job experience whatsoever, and that, honestly, that's important. That's just as important as where your degree is from and what your degree is in. So I can remember just telling myself, like, it's gonna be all right, bro, because you have a UT degree. Okay, but here's the problem. Okay, I got cut in 2009. Okay, the United States is in and going through a depression. So there is literally not that many jobs at all. And I can remember my dad trying to get me on a Bell helicopter. And you gotta think, my dad old school. They're from the generation of, you get on, you work your 30 years and retire. And there's no heavy education factor on those jobs. He works for a union, and to me that's already like you work for a union. To me that is not reality. And I know my opinion is jaded because I'm in education, but I've been dealing with my dad being in the union for a long time. They take strikes because they got to pay too much on their copay. I'm like, man, we don't even get a choice about what kind of insurance we get as an educator. And y'all over here taking strikes on because the copay was too high. Y'all are going on strike for 2 months. So, but it was crazy because I can remember him trying to get me jobs. And again, I know my dad's respected at work. He knows he's respected, and he knows that, like, hey, if he can try to get somebody on, he can at least influence or get somebody a chance. So of course he's gonna try to get me on. And I really thought I had a chance. And my grandfather worked at Bell Helicopter. He had Bell Helicopter, so I'm low key thinking like, man, I'm about to be another Foster 2 at Bell Helicopter. This is about to be cool. But even he couldn't get me on. And I know he was getting to the point where he was like, hey son, like, and again, I went back home. Like, with my NFL money, I didn't go buy a house or all this crazy stuff, because one, I didn't make that much money. But I just got good parents, and I was like, I'm just going back home. But of course, like my dad told me, like, hey son, you ain't finna just be in this house sitting doing nothing. I don't care what kind of money you got in your bank account. You still finna work. So I remember just looking for these jobs. He's trying to get me on, and eventually he was just like, hey son, you basically need like an engineering degree. And I was like, I didn't have no engineering degree. That's, as far as a lot of positions that they had. And this is during recession. So that was like a dead end. So I remember trying to fathom why couldn't I get a job, because I honestly thought, like, when somebody seen that I had a degree from UT, that's all I needed. Like, that's how naive I was. But at the same time, that's what was sold to us. But unfortunately, when you graduate college around that time and it's a recession, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what or where your degree's from. So, and this, I'm gonna tell y'all a story. This is probably the event that I knew I was depressed. You know what? Before I even tell that story, so here's some more. So, okay, I'm looking for jobs. Can't find any jobs. We're in a recession. Okay. Then, also, I'm a father now. So that's already, I'm about to be a father. That's already stressing me out. Okay, my girl pregnant. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to be no daddy. I got a great daddy, but that don't mean I know how to be a daddy. Okay, the only thing I was hoping for is that I had a boy. That was the only bright side. Like, please just give me a boy so he could be athlete. That was like my mindset for it. I just want a boy because they play sports. Girls, they cheerlead. Nobody want to watch all that. Okay, no shade to the cheerleaders. Y'all athletes too. Okay, but I'm about to be a father. So now I'm thinking, all right, I'm not bringing any money in at all, but I'm about to be a father. So that was tough. That was a tough pill to swallow, knowing that I was about to be a dad, and I don't have any income in. I can't find a job, and I have a college degree. Okay, so I started getting desperate. So I started getting on Craigslist looking for jobs. And I don't know if anybody knows what Craigslist is, but it's just classified ads. Not even classified, but they're ads. It's just a platform where you can post anything. You can post job ads. You can sell anything. It's like this is where you can find anything. You can buy anything. It's an online marketplace. Okay, so I see this job post that says it's actually looking for former athletes, and it's a marketing job. The thing that got me said no experience necessary. So I'm like, cool. Like I of course, and there was like, it was a sales position, but at the time I was like, man, this is perfect. So I submit my resume to the email, and I think I get a response within a couple days. I'm like, this is now this was crazy. This is actually my first job interview outside of being an athlete. So I'm like nervous. I don't have any experience about how to handle a job interview or nothing. So I remember just, hey, I had a nice suit. I had my national championship ring on, because low key I was like, I'm gonna put this ring on, and if they don't want me, they tripping anyway. Like, I'm national champion. Like, I know what it is to be on the team, and I know what it is to win. Like, I might not bring necessarily any job experience, but I can bring a mindset that I can get the job done. I know my place, I know my role, and I can make it work. Like, I can learn fast. Like, the stuff that athletes are good at. Like, we have a growth mindset where we can do anything. Just teach us, coach us, and then let us work. So I'm telling you, I was suited and booted, had my ring on, had my T ring on. I'm looking real official. So I get to this interview, and of course there's other interviews there, and I remember sitting down with this lady, and she was asking me a bunch of questions. And to me, luckily I had some experience in doing interviews, not necessarily a job interview, but I had experience doing interviews, so I was comfortable speaking. That was not a hard thing to do. So she's like, hey, I really like you. You speak very well. You can articulate your thoughts. And he's like, we don't usually do it this way, but I want you to go out with a couple of our field agents to really see if you like what we do here. And again, I'm like, I know it's like it's marketing sales. It's a marketing sales position. So I'm like, cool. And again, now I didn't at the time I didn't realize this, but she didn't tell me what we were selling. Okay, so I'm like, at the time I didn't have anything to do. I'm like perfect. Like in my mind, I'm thinking like, cool, I already got the job. Okay, and remind you, this is a commission job, which I have no experience in having a commission job, a commission-based job. Then she still hasn't told me what we're selling. So she's like, I really want you to go with these two guys. And now again, I'm not a judgmental guy. I done been around some good people. I done been around some hood. I done been around everything. My daddy did a good job of balancing me around how to be around certain type of people. Okay, but I'm gonna tell you this. First of all, from her professionalism and how we conducted our interview to these two guys that she sent me with, I was like, hold up, something don't add up. So these dudes show up and they're like, hey, what's up? I'm so-and-so. I don't know what her name was, told us that, you can go on the field with us today. So I'm like, cool, but and again, I try not to judge a book by its cover because you'll be fooled if you do. So I told myself, cool, I'm not gonna judge these guys. So I'm gonna tell you what I actually describing it, but just imagine you're in a interview and you suited and booted and you're nice and you're thinking this is a high end or higher end job, that you would think that your counterparts or these two gentlemen will look the same, but they did not. So that was the first flag. Okay, first dudes had on big old dress shirt, like just, bro, it just wasn't put together. Like, bro, you too old for that. You was too old for that. So I'm like, cool, I ain't judging, like, whatever. So we get in the car, and I'm like, they're like, yeah, man, we just, we do this, and we like, and this is what they sold. So it was a door-to-door sales position. Now remind you, bro, we in Texas. It's hot. I'm hot, and like, yeah, man, we go door to door, and we sell replacement windows. And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, man, we go door to door, and we're gonna teach you our sales pitch, all these sales strategies and marketing, blah blah blah. And I can remember, I mean, if they were looking at me in the back of that back seat, I was like, first of all, I'm not about to be knocking on nobody's door asking them to replace some windows. Like, I'm telling you, I was so upset because I honestly, in an egotistical way, and I don't know if this sounds bad, but I just thought, for one, I didn't go to UT and graduate, bro, to be going door to door selling windows. Like, that's beneath me. And I was just in the NFL freaking 8 months ago. So I can remember, like, bro, what you do before this? And like, honestly, low key, I did not want to tell them that I played football literally 6, 7, 8 months before that. Because I'm sure them cats are thinking like, bro, you about to do this? But I was like, yeah, man, I play ball, just trying to, get my foot in the door, And it's like, all right, man, cool. So we get to this neighborhood. We really do this now. We get to a neighborhood, and around just like 99 degrees. And I'm in a suit and a tie. And we walk, and we farm this neighborhood. We knock on the door. We probably knocked on at least 20 doors. One person opened the door. One person. And that lady she didn't want no parts of that. It was an old lady. She's like, no, I'm sorry. And she just being so nice. No, I'm sorry. I don't need it. I'm like, cool. Wait, close the door, woman. Like, he was really trying to sell this woman. And again, he's a natural salesman. So, bro, I get it. No, I ain't judging. Like, he was all for it. But for me, I'm sorry. I didn't go to college for 5 years, get this degree to go knock door to door. And I kid you not. So we get back to this building. Me and my wife still laugh at this story every time we drive by this building. But we get back, and I don't know what this lady's name is, but I go back to the interview. She's like, so, how was it? I hope we can really get you on a team. And I ain't gonna lie, y'all. I straight lied to that chick. I was like, you know what? I really like it, because at the time I didn't know how to be like, hell no, I ain't doing this. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm not, woman, do you not see? I got a national championship ring on. I got a T ring on. Means that I lettered and graduated. I have my degree. It's from the University of Texas. Like, no, I'm not about to go door to door. Like, I'm not, like, and this is in my mind. I'm saying this. I'm hot. Like, matter of fact, I'm still a little bit hot today about that. But I was like, yeah. She's like, all right, that's so good. She's like, we just need to get some paperwork. She was like, okay, so all you have to do is just she was like, go outside in the waiting area, and I'll get this paperwork done, and we'll sign it. And we, you can start this week if you want. I was like, all right, cool. I kid you not, y'all. I walked out her office. I got in that elevator. As soon as the elevator hit the first floor, I kid you not, I ran to my truck. Like, and it's funny because when I got on the elevator, the two dudes right there, like, hey, bro, where you going? You gonna go back? I was like, yeah, bro, I just need to go run and get something from my truck real quick. Like, for real. Like, I just need to go get something from my truck. They said, all right, cool, bet. Man, I'm telling y'all, when that elevator ding opened that door, I literally ran to my truck. And I was so upset. Okay, this and now, and I tell you this story because this when I knew I was depressed. Okay, I got to my truck and I drove off and I broke down. Like I'm telling you, I cried like when my daddy whooped my ass or something. Like I cried, I was like, bro, this is terrible. I got cut. Okay, I'm not a football player anymore because at that time I only seen value in myself that I was a football player. That's how I saw myself. I was a football player. That was the only thing I was good at. I gave my entire life to football. Now I don't have football. Now I'm about to be a father, and I'm not gonna be able to provide for my son. And then, yet on top of that, the only job that I can qualify for is some door-to-door salesman to sell windows or some doors. That was like my low point. That's when I knew that I was depressed, and that for the first time in my life, it was something that I felt like I couldn't fix. Because athletes, we always feel that we can do anything or we capable of anything. And that was the first time for me that I felt alone. I was in a bad place. I was in a dark place. I didn't know who I was. And that's the day I realized that, bro, I am depressed. And I knew I had to do something quick, or it was just one of those things where I just knew it wasn't a good place to be. So hopefully at the time I don't know, like it was just one of those things where it was so bad that I can remember it. The only person I really told the truth about the interview was to my wife, or at the time she's my girl, and I just told her, and she was excited. So how did it go? I was like, man, I didn't tell her that I broke. That's the thing. I didn't tell her that I broke down or that I cried. I just told her, like, nope, man, I ran to my truck. That's how bad it was. And I can just remember telling my parents, like, nah, it wasn't a good fit. Like, it's some door-to-door stuff. I didn't, it wasn't really my thing. But I can remember thinking, like, man, bro, I cannot get a job. Like, I'm not going to be able to provide. I'm not going to be able to do anything. So I really wanted to tell that story. So that brings us to the halftime. That brings us to the end of this second quarter. I hope that the first two quarters really just gave you the events that put me into my state of depression. And again, I was in this state of depression for a while. And even though the third quarter, when I kind of tell you about how I started getting out of it, it was still a long, long process. And and don't get me wrong, there's a bunch of variables and other factors that helped me, not helped me, but was a part of me becoming in depression. But it was those events, that got me into my state of depression. So sit tight. And here's a word from our sponsor, or here's a quick intermission. So now that you understand the events that put me in my state of depression, now I want to give you the storyline of how I got out of depression. And I say I got out of depression because I know I'm not depressed. Now, am I stressed? Of course, but I know I'm not depressed. So eventually I did get my first job. I had an interview with the YMCA to be an after-school program coordinator. And basically all that was I would go to these elementary schools after school and do activities with kids, which was actually pretty fun because I found out real quick I was still a kid at heart, and I think being in a state of depression, being around kids who don't know your story, don't know who you are, they're just looking for somebody to make a connection with. So it was real easy for me to make a connection with kids because we was having a good time, and I was really enjoying it. And it was probably the first time that I really thought about, like, maybe I should get into education. But I did know if I got into education, I wanted to coach for sure. It was one of those things where, like, I knew I was marketable. I knew that would give me, like, who wouldn't want a former player on the coaching staff? Because I did know that, like, my coach in high school was a former player. So it's one of those things where I knew that I can at least be a coach if all else fails. So I'm doing the YMCA stuff, and I can remember my best friend, my boy D-Cam, was like, he was already a teacher. He was already a coach, and we would talk, and he would just have just, so much passion. And I'm like, man, I know I can do that. Like, that seems fun. He's a passionate guy anyway. But you can tell that he's one of those coaches and teachers that really loves his kids, and to this day, he's the same way. Like, I ask him all the time, bro, I don't know how you do high school football. That is not my cup of tea, just with the amount of time that you have to spend with your kids. So it's like, hey, bro, I think I can get you on. You can be a ISS teacher, or you can get into our SPED department. So I was like, cool, man, let's do it. So of course he works his magic. He gets me an interview. I can remember Mr. Nix, which was my first interview with a school, which was intimidating in itself. But it's probably my first time just really going through a tough interview. But it was like one of those things where I felt like I was built for it. Just I'm used to being in these kind of situations. But it was a good interview, but it was a tough interview because it was one of those things that made me realize, you know what, I have to be more than an athlete. I can't just expect people to believe that I'm qualified because I'm an athlete. It was one of those things where he wanted to. I can remember Mr. Nix asking me some deep questions, like why do you want to get into education? And at the time, I really didn't know, so I don't know what I said, but I did know at the time that I could at least handle being around children. But this was a little different because I would have to be in the SPED department. So shout out to all the families who have children with special needs, because that is a tough position to be in, because those kids are just like our kids, but they just have special needs. So shout out to those parents. I love y'all for not turning y'all back on your kids. And then shout out to the special ed teachers too, because that is a tough job. So eventually I do get the job, and I'm dealing with kids with special needs. I'm dealing with kids who have behavioral issues, who are aggressive, and it was just a tough job. But I did love those kids just like they were mine. It was hard. So I got that job, and what was crazy is probably, well, I know for sure while I had the YMCA job, I had the opportunity to try out for the CFL. And the first time my agent brought it up to me, I told him no, and I remember telling him no because in an egotistical way, which I have a lot of ego issues when it comes to sports. I felt like I was already on an NFL roster for a year. I looked at that as a step back. Like, why would I go to the CFL when I've been in the NFL? And I can remember after working for that middle school for a little bit, man, it just became tough. Like I said, special needs students require a lot of energy and attention. And I can just remember, like, man, this is tough. Like, I can remember that sometimes, like, I did not want to go to work to work just because it was hard. It was stressful. Like, it's one of those things where you feel like you can't make a difference. And I can remember thinking, like, man, maybe I should think about the CFL. So I can remember this was like in November, and this is probably like a month or two into when I started in November. And my agent hit me up. He's like, hey, man, you sure you don't want to do the CFL thing? Like, Saskatchewan Rough Rider they want you to come out. And I was like, I do. I really do. So I stayed with that job. I started working out. I started training because I had stopped training at that point. I started working out. I was trying to get ready for CFL. And I remember February came around. I just remember, like, it was hard for me to go to work and after work, train, and to this day, it's probably one of the biggest regrets I have because I don't think I burnt the bridge, but this wasn't a good look. It's not something that I'm proud to say, like, hey, I went to my principal, like, hey, man, I just got to put my 2 weeks in because I just want to focus on football. You know, I have a chance to go out to play in the CFL, and, you know, I just need the time. So, of course, you know, he's disappointed, but he understands because he knew my background. So I started training, I started doing all that, and make a long story short, I did not make the team, and that'd be probably another podcast, but I didn't make the team. So that put me in a deeper state of depression because now I'm like, I'm not even good enough to play in the CFL. So at that time, after I got cut, I told myself that football was not going to be a part of my life. I didn't watch football for a long time. I didn't even talk to any of my friends. Like, I didn't want to have anything to do with football. So that put me in an even deeper state of depression. And I can remember, it's like, so now I need a job. Now I just left this job, and, you know, the school year's about to start. And I can remember my boy Ramos hit me up. He was like, hey, bro, do you still work at Hutch? And I was like, nah, bro, actually I don't. He's like, man, we got a position, we got a PE job open. You can coach football. And he's like, man, but it is 6-man football, but whatever. But I was like, I don't even know what 6-man football is. But at that time, I didn't have that much ego. I was like, man, just get me on. So I do the interview, get the job. And it's one of those things where you have friends who they're proud to tell your story. And I can remember, you know, the kids like, man, you playing the NFL, da-da-da-da-da. And I was probably, I'm sure to a lot of my charter school boys that I had, they probably hated me because I literally did not want to talk about it. I was probably, I know for sure I was not the best coach. I can remember just being real hard on them, like, and my mindset was like, y'all playing 6-man football. Like, why y'all talking about NFL? That's tough. Not that I never told them that they couldn't do it. I was like, man, y'all need to be in reality. Like, if you do want to do football, bro, you need to go to not a charter school with 6-man football. You need to go to high school. Like, I don't know too many 6-man. At the time I didn't know any 6-man football players that made it to the NFL. So I can just remember being real, you know, being too realistic for them. Like, I do feel like, hey, if you play 6-man football, but your dreams, aspirations is to be a collegiate player, just think it's gonna be more hard. Not that you don't have the ability, but I haven't had maybe the Dallas Cowboys linebacker, the Wolfman. I can't think of his name right now, but I think he plays 6-man football. But anyway, I just remember doing that job, and I remember I pissed some boys off because they went to my Wikipedia page and changed some information on Wikipedia page that said Coach Foster don't believe in us, to be crushing our dreams. And I think that was the event that was like, man, I'm really in a bad place. Like, I'm really depressed. Like, I'm making these kids not believe in themselves. That's like the last thing that I want to do. So I can remember having a meeting with them and telling them, like, one, I apologize, but I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm just saying that if you really want to be a football player, you want to get to the place that I got. One, it takes a lot of hard work, and it does take a certain mindset, which at the time those kids didn't possess. But all I was trying to say, hey, this is what you want to do, like, go to these high schools, you know. And of course, they don't get to choose what schools they go to. That's their parents' decision. So that was, the kids were able to start help me see myself in a different light, because I could start seeing that my depression was starting to affect the way that I communicated with the kids, and not, you know, helping them believe in themselves. So I do that for a year and a half, and I can just remember, like, at that point, I did not want to be at that charter school, nothing to do with the kids, but just how the charter school was ran. And I was at that point like, man, you know what? I'm sick of this. Like, I just can't do it. And I went to a football clinic, and again, I'm at this point, I'm still dealing with depression, like, on my own. I don't really talk about it much. And I can remember going to this clinic, this football clinic, and it's a Texas football clinic, and every high school high school football coach can go, but I am a 6-man football coach. So I was like embarrassed. I'm like, I'm not going to these. I'm gonna go, but I'm not going to any of this stuff. And I can remember actually one of my coaches from college was a speaker, and I didn't even go to his little speaking engagement or speaking clinic because I didn't want to show up and be like, hey, B. Foster, where you coaching? And I can just remember thinking like, I do not want to tell him that I'm coaching 6-man football, or I don't want to be around all these other coaches and they're like, hey, they hear about my background and they start asking me these questions like, why are you coaching 6-man football? Because I was just in a dark place. I didn't want to talk about it. I felt like I was a failure. All these different emotions that I didn't want to admit to. So I remember this day to the T. I was searching online, searching these school districts, certain positions, and there was a PE position at Kennedy Middle School in Grand Prairie, and I knew that one of my coaches was a principal in the district. So I hit up Coach Johnson. I was like, hey, Coach Johnson, I'm trying to get this PE job in the district, and I submitted my resume, but I haven't heard anything. Do you know anybody at the school? And Lord behold, that he did know the principal. He's like, hey, I got you. I'll text or email the principal, let him know. So literally, the next day, that principal called me. It's like, hey, I got your information from Mr. Johnson, and can you come in for an interview today? Now I was in San Antonio. I was like, no, I can't come today, but because I'm at this coaching clinic, can I come in 2 days? It's like, that's fine. So I think that was like a Wednesday. It's like, well, just come Monday for the interview. So I go in, knock it out. Of course, I put my T ring on. I put my national championship ring on, and the interview went great. So I get the job. And remind you, this is the first year. This is an all-boys school, and I get there. Mr. Magruder, I meet the coaches. I do all this, and they're like, coach. Of course, Magruder's like, hey, former UT player, football player, former Colts player. So the coaches they're like, man, it's cool. Got a former player. We'll build that relationship, and then it's like, now I'm coaching real football. So I'm just excited because it's hard trying to coach 6-man football when you've never played it. But now I'm coaching 11-man football, and it was exciting. And I can remember the kids just constantly, coaches asking me, because I did PE, just asking me, how was it? Like, the main, which is crazy about kids is when you tell them that you played in the NFL, their first question is always, well, one, why are you not still in the NFL? And two, why'd you quit? Like, to this day, every year, every new crop of kids that we have, the same question is, Coach, why did you quit? And every day, like, I tried to not always answer, because like, Coach, why you not playing? I was like, man, I don't know what I told them. But eventually, it got to the point where those kids asked me so much, where now when kids ask me, Coach, why'd you quit? I say, look, son, I didn't quit, I got fired. And they're like, what? Like, what you do? And I was like, hey, I wasn't good enough. And that little phrase, I wasn't good enough, was like, that was the key of getting me out of my depression. It was just like, hey, B. Foster, like, you just wasn't good enough, and that's okay. Because kids they're like, man, you weren't good enough. Like, nah, man, I just wasn't good enough. Like, I was only good enough for 1 year, and it was like, well, how was it? Like, they were still interested, like, not like, oh, Coach, you trash. Like, and don't get me wrong, once I get cool with my kids, they will tell me in a minute, like, Coach, you was trash. No, you was trash. And it's one of those things like, nah, man, I wasn't trash, but it's just the next man was better. And I think admitting that someone else was better than me, and that, yeah, I wasn't good enough, but that's okay, like, that helped me get out of my depression. And every year I go through that phase of kids asking me, Coach, why you? And I'm like, man, I wasn't good enough. And it allowed me to, one, just admit that I wasn't good enough, and admit that was okay. And I just remember some kids telling me, like, man, that's just cool. Like, even if it was just for 1 year. And I'm like, damn, these are 6th, 7th, and 8th graders telling me, like, man, that's okay. Like, Coach, that's still cool. Like, you're the only NFL player that I come across. I get to see you every day. And I can just remember having, like, especially with my 8th graders, like coach, what I need to do to get to the league? And I would always tell them, like, first of all, let's not worry about the league. Let's worry about high school first. And you're gonna go to play freshman ball, and you got to make the varsity team. And then once you make the varsity team, then you can start thinking about college. And once you get to college, you got to start playing. Then you can start talking about NFL. So just like breaking that down and really finding my purpose and helping kids see that, yeah, you can have that dream, but hey, listen, I'm going to teach you all the steps, because it's more than just, I want to go to the NFL. So me being able to have that dialogue with kids literally every day was my therapy, was my medicine, because they will literally beg it out of you. Like, it's hard to just kid ask you a question, you're like, man, I ain't answering that, coach. I ain't talking about that. And don't get me wrong, first couple of times I was like, just trying to be real short with them. Hey, let's focus on practice, just redirect stuff. But after a while, when there's so many kids, and not even just my athletes, like just my regular PE kids, they're like, oh, coach, let's do this. And they want to play, because, they want to see how it is to play against an NFL player. And it'll become just one of those things where I build that relationship, because it's an all-boys school and we just being competitive, and they want to get coach out in dodgeball, because like, if I can get coach out, then they feel better about themselves. So it's crazy, because I never really get to tell kids, like especially that first 3 or 4 years. I've been there for 8 years now. I never really got to tell that, that first group 6th graders, I had to tell them thank you, because honestly, they slowly got me out of my depression, because they made me see the worst in my accomplishment. Because up until that point, I was really embarrassed to say that I played NFL, because, and to this day, I still catch myself saying, well, it was only 1 year. Like, it's not a big deal. And still people always say, but man, you made it. And now I do kind of take pride in saying that, yeah, you know what, I did make it. And can tell people what my experience was, because although it wasn't a great experience, because it was stressful, and I'll kind of get into that on a different podcast. But I do take pride in saying, you know what, I did make it. And it's okay to say that, yeah, you only made it for a year. And if it wasn't for those kids constantly talking and getting it out of me, I'll probably say I would definitely still be in a secret depression. Because that's exactly what it was. Because again, I didn't want to watch football, I didn't want to talk to anybody, I didn't go to any college games, I didn't do any social events that reminded me of football. I didn't do until I get around these kids who think I am literally the coolest thing ever, even though I was just a scrub. And even then, like, I had to tell them, like, oh, coach, how many games you start? And I'm like, none. How many interceptions you get? I didn't get any interceptions. Like, and having to tell over and over, like, hey, I didn't play in any regular season games. I was a practice squad guy. Like, I was paid to practice. And for kids to still see the value in that, like, man, that's just cool. And then even, teachers start hearing about it, and they want to hear all this different stuff. And honestly, just being able to talk about it honestly in a forceful way. I had, those kids forced me to have to talk about it, and that is what helped me out of my depression. And even then, like, my kids, like I said, every year, they're the new 6th graders or new 7th, 8th graders that we had, and they hear that, I was like, Coach Ross, did you play? I'm like, yeah. And you can tell they will answer, like, well, what you want to know? Why did I quit? And I'm like, I didn't quit. So it's like those same stories. So this third quarter, I just really wanted to tell you how, honestly, I owe it all to some kids. And don't get me wrong, of course, my strong wife who helped me get through it, of course, she has a pivotal part. But when you spend 8 hours a day at a school full of kids, they pull out, they pretty much saved my mind. Because I feel like without those kids and my wife, I definitely would have never got out that depression. And I just hate that with my charter school kids, I didn't necessarily give them that chance to help me out of it, because I was just such in a bad space that I never gave them that chance. I was always trying to, like, just so aggressive, like, nah, you gonna do that, you gotta do this, and didn't give them that chance to help me. So that brings me to the end of the third quarter. This fourth quarter, I really, really want to really just kind of give you some advice. And it may not necessarily be the longest quarter, but I just really want to give you some real deal advice. And again, I'm not an expert. If you want some real advice, you need to go see some professional help. So sit tight, and here's a quick intermission. because everybody's, state of depression is different. And again, I'm not the professional here. I know I'm not even probably using the right lingo or language, but for me, I think the number one thing is honestly just to open your mouth. And I was forced to open my mouth due to naive kids, but honestly, to open your mouth. And I know, besides the kid, one of the best things that helped me get out of that state of depression, and even other things like identity issues and finding my self-worth and self-respect and all of those complexities that I deal with now. I think one of the best things that helped me is honestly just talking to my former teammates. And I got my boy like Marcus and Ishi, and even recently talking to Ross. Like, what I realized is that we all go through the same thing. It doesn't matter, like me, who was a 1-year player, to somebody when I talked to Ross, he's like, man, bro, I felt the same way when I was done playing. And I was shocked, because I'm like, bro, you played for 7 years. Like, how? There's no way that I thought you would be able to relate to what I'm talking about. But I just think if you just have an open dialogue with people who have been in similar situations, and especially when it comes to athletes, I feel like we should really, really just hang on each other, because if anybody understands us, it's us. Because we're athletes, that's one thing that brings us together. And I don't care if your career ended after high school or ended after college or after the pros. And like I said in my intro, that's one thing that we all have in common, is a life after sports. And honestly, if you got those boys or those ladies that you play with, man, just be open with each other and say, man, bro, do you feel like this? Because like I said, every time I get with my boys, I swear we say some of the same stuff over and over and over. And I can remember finally going back to doing some UT stuff, and of course you just happy to see everybody doing good, and some people are still playing, some not, some didn't even get to go to the pros, but we all still kind of going through the same thing, and we all still have those identity issues and some of those, trying to find who we are. And to me, that's probably one of the best things that I feel like is helping me to, with some of those issues that are not depression, but just other issues, is honestly just being around people that I know have the same sacrifices and experiences as I have. I think another thing, and like I say, I feel like behind every good man is a strong woman. And shout out to my wife, because she has, I'm telling y'all right now, she has had every reason to leave, just based on my mindset and just really figuring out who I am. And I know one thing that has helped her is honestly, like, my friends and their wives, like our wives have kind of clicked up and helped each other, because they have to deal with us. So I would just honestly say, fellas, and even ladies, like, be open and honest with your partner, because like my wife, she did not play any sports. My wife is an All-American hairstylist. Hey, that's as deep as her athletic ability goes, and I'm not clowning you, babe, because you're cold at what you do. But I can remember a lot of times when I did try to say something, or I didn't even go to her, because I'm like, you cannot relate to what I'm saying because you didn't play sports. And although that may be true, it's still important that you at least share how you feeling with her. And I think my problem was, I wanted to talk to her and I wanted her to have a solution. And I think that's probably the wrong way to go about it. I just think you have to just say, you know what, babe, I'm gonna tell you some stuff about how I feel, and I don't necessarily need you to find me a solution. I just need you to hear me out. And I know for men, we're always solution oriented. And women, or my woman, I've had to learn that she's not like me, so she's listening, but she's not gonna provide me a solution. That's not what she does. And honestly, that suits me better, because if I'm opening up to her, honestly, in my mind, I probably have a solution. If anything, I just want her to agree to my solution. And if she doesn't, that creates a whole nother issue. So I've had to teach myself, when you do decide to open up about whatever issues you have, don't expect your significant other to have a solution unless you ask them directly, like, hey, what do you think I should do? So my next advice would be, man, just open up to the person that's closest to you. And I just think that's very important. But before, I think even what's even more important is just self-awareness. And that's one thing I think that the kids helped me realize is I realized that the way I think about myself is really, really messed up. And this is something that I'm still working on to this day. And a lot of it is wrapped around my identity and seeing myself more than just an athlete. Because like I said all the time, man, we give our lives to these sports that we play. And especially when we get to play at a high level and it doesn't necessarily turn out how you want to. Like I said, and you know, my boy Ross was like, man, if I would have played this one more year, I did this, I could have got the $40 million deal. I'm thinking like, and I'm thinking like, bro, if I would have got 7 years, I'm good. I don't care about the $40 million deal. But even just to hear his different mindset, we all still go through those. We go through that where it's like the what if I'd have did this, if I'd have did that, and I'm sure Sonya is definitely, and she's an athlete too, so I'm sure they're definitely communicating and bouncing off their ideas and their weaknesses and stuff with each other too. But I just think it's real important that you have a lot of self-awareness and that you have to be real with your inadequacies and just be real with yourself and say that, one, it's not wrong to feel this way, but two, I need to find out what my root cause is that's making me feel these inadequacies about myself. And that's one of the things that kids have helped me do is like they made me realize that I don't think very highly of myself, which ultimately kind of put me in that state of depression because I'm like, I don't have any self-worth in myself if I don't have football. And I think the biggest strategy would be, it starts with yourself. And again, I'm not the expert on depression. I don't know what level of depression I was in. I just know that I wasn't in a good place. But I do feel like if you really just take the time to look at yourself without judgment, it would allow you to see, one, allows you to see your accomplishments as a huge thing, and that's something that you really, really do need to appreciate. And although it necessarily didn't end the way you wanted it to, that it's okay. So I really think that it has to start with some self-awareness, and then, like I said, start speaking to people that went through the same thing you went through. Share your feelings with your significant other, with your wife. And I think it's just one of those things, like once you say it, it just makes you feel better. So even if it's just as simple as go to your wife and be like, man, babe, I'm depressed. And as simple as that, not even necessarily telling them what you're depressed about, just like, I'm just gonna say what I'm about to say this, don't say anything, don't respond, just, hey, I really think I'm depressed. And I think that kind of lifts a lot of, stress, that lifts a lot of emotion off of your chest just by admitting that out loud. I don't know the science behind, you just saying something out loud that just makes you feel better. But I really think it comes down to, especially for an athlete, man, just to say it, just to get it out. And again, this can apply to, I know I do a lot of, this podcast is, really for players. But honestly, this podcast is for anybody. And again, I know I'm not the expert. I'm just speaking on experience, but just when I began to speak on it, that's when things for me started to change drastically. And when you start understanding why you feel this way, you can actually just start speaking on it more. I can remember telling my friends, like, man, now that I can tell them that I've had, identity issues and really trying to figure out who I am or what's my purpose, or it's all these things that I never really want to talk about, and all these things that really made me feel less than. But then when you start talking to people and they start saying, well, dang, bro, I feel the same way, you start feeling like, man, I thought I was crazy, bro. Thank you for saying that you are going through the same thing. So you start getting power in numbers by just knowing that you're not the only one. So, that brings me, because again, I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to sit here and speak for 30 minutes and say what you should do or anything like that. But like I say, open your mouth, speak on it, be vulnerable, and just see where that gets you. So I want to end it on this. Now that my podcast is on Spotify, it's on Apple, it's on Google, I want you guys to leave me some reviews. Give me 5 stars if you like it. Give me 5 stars. Leave some reviews. I really want this podcast to grow because I feel like it is not just me, it is all of us. And we can share that commonality of our life after sports and the struggles that we share. So on whatever platform that you are listening to this podcast on, please leave 5 stars. Please leave some reviews. And if there's some topics that you want me to talk about, like I said, hit me, email me at lifeaftersportstalk@gmail.com. If you have some topics that you want me to discuss, leave me some reviews. So, like I said, email me some suggestions and share this podcast because it's not about me, it's about us, it's about our journey, our life after sports, and it's something that we all share in common. So that brings me to the end. I want to thank you guys for listening to the last podcast where it is the only time to be last. Until next time, I'm out.